What's up, everyone? Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Toke Moments. Season 2, I must say, has been an absolute blast. Now, we're switching things up a little bit. My friend from before, my long-time friendship. People don't know how close we used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, I got a birthday cake from Chef Eros. Every single year. And each cake always got better and better and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember how you used to just go all out and decorate this cake, and I would always get it November 3rd.
Yeah.
If I've never said thank you to you, my friend, because those little gestures just made me feel really, really loved. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And now I have you on my couch. Welcome.
I know. It's a pleasure to be here.
Nice to catch up with you.
I know. You look great.
You look great too. You're now a foreigner.
Well, I'm still a Lagosian.
Because I thought it was a 6 months. I'm going away for 6 months.
I thought so too.
I'll just be gone for 6 months. I'll be right back.
Too, I promise.
And then it's been 2-3 years?
2.5 years. 2.5 years. And it flew by so quickly.
And you've done so much.
By the grace of God,
Literally
the grace of God
Nigerian...
and the culture. I have to tell you, the culture was the thing, though.
The culture.
Like, it was not for the culture. We have been sitting back and watching, asking ourselves, what's going on?
I know.
Are we going to do this? But the culture really helped, man, because especially when I really embodied the culture myself, a lot of things happened very quickly. And I'll start with the pandemic. The pandemic changed a lot.
I agree.
For me in particular, I've been going, like, people, my friends who have been calling me BC Billioniare Chef, BC Billioniare Chef, but I never really taken it on seriously. It just was just like a nickname, right? And then just before the pandemic, just before my birthday, I went on a trip in February. So my birthday is February the 28th. So 2 weeks before that, I went on a trip and I went to Côte d'Ivoire.
Yeah.
But it was an all expenses paid trip. I was going with a brand. Like, it was like really
because
like...
you were literally one of the people, I mean, don't mean to cut you short, but in the emergence of this chef culture in Nigeria, you were one of the very first people
absolutely.
Who started to make this thing seem like, because I remember back then you put together all these events and have like gourmet meals, and Nigerians would be like this gourmet thing that when you go is like always very tiny. I know. And then you guys will now find those fancy names for Eforiro and something and just call it Rose something. I'm just like, this is Eforiro and this. Yeah. You were one of the first people who had that thing where they just said for your event to be complete, you need a chef. Because people would just have local caterers before.
Correct.
And then there was a culture of, if you want to dine with friends, you can have a private chef coming.
Correct.
And I remember you used to host a lot of that. And then you opened a restaurant as well. You used to invite people. It was such a little space that, it's like, come and try. Every Sunday or something, you used to do something back then.
And it used to be on Fridays. So I would do something on Friday. We'll call it the Bougie Fridays. And I'll have people come by and they'll do a tasting of the menu. And at that time, I was really using it to practice and to sort of get, because when I started doing gourmet food, as we call it, and I was focused on Nigerian food, right? It wasn't something that had been done by anyone per se, right? So there was a lot of learning to go into how do we make Nigerian food internationally recognized? How do we make Nigerian food look the same way you would see food at French Laundry, or you go to a high-end restaurant and the food looks well plated, all the elements are deconstructed and each element is celebrated and is shining, so I had to go through all of that, and you guys didn't realize that you were my scapegoats.
We were, because then it was like every time we'll get these messages every weekend, as you said, Friday, and I remember always coming by and the menu used to blow my mind, because I'm like, this is egusi, wow, you do it in such a way.
Puree, they will give them like, we'll turn the what's it called, the vegetable into some sort of like into like a dehydrated vegetable and put it on top, and just make it look good. But the thing is, like, my journey started a long, long time ago. A lot of people didn't know this, but I was 21 when I owned my first restaurant in Lagos.
Really?
La Saison, just off Awola Road, Raymond.
I remember that one.
I was 21.
Downstairs.
Yes, downstairs.
I knew that one,
It used to be Cakes by Tosa.
Yeah.
And that was my first intro into the food business. At the time, I was studying international business management in university, and my mother wanted to open a restaurant. So I came back to help her write the business plan and open the restaurant. And I just fell in love with it. Bear in mind, I'd been working in the UK. I was studying in school. While I was in school, I was working a lot. So I worked in the restaurant as a waiter. My first first job was actually a bartender, you know, and I think that was my introduction to flavors and what you can do to bring several flavors together and create an experience in a glass, you know. And I just really loved hospitality. I loved hosting people. And so from my first restaurant, then into the bakery cookie jar, and then from cookie jar into Eros and Gourmet.
That's where I got my cake from every year.
Yes. Eros and Gourmet catering. And then I guess a couple years later, I decided that I wanted to really push Nigerian food forward. And so we opened ILE Eros, which is an authentic Nigerian restaurant with a modern twist. And the space was designed as a house of a well-traveled Nigerian family that's like passionate about like music, arts, and culture. And so we made the space look like you were going into someone's home, you know, literally like someone's home, you know, and it did very well. It's still around very much so. So it's what, 5-6 years old now, since 2018, you know. Yeah, but the pandemic really did change a lot for me, you know, because as I was saying, I went on this trip, and before I got on the flight, I thought to myself, this trip is giving Billionaire Chef stuff, you know? So I changed my name on Instagram from Chef Eros to the Billionaire Chef. Bear in mind, before that, as Chef Eros, I had requested verification, and everyone was getting verified. You were getting verified. I was like, what was my own now? Why am I not getting? At least I even have, at the time I probably had like 15K followers or something. I'm like, so people that even have less than me, they are verified now. Why Instagram is saying there's something, they're not special, there's something that I changed my name on that before I got on the flight to the Billionaire Chef. I got on the flight, switched my phone off. I got off the flight, switched my phone on, and it was verified. There was no going back.
Power in the tongue.
Yes, and for me that was speaking into existence. For those who watched me closely, everything about me changed. The way I dressed changed. The way I started everything about me changed. Because I had to ask myself, who is a billionaire chef? First of all, this billionaire chef is African as fuck. Right? You know, he's a culinary entertainer, you know, and he loves to tell stories. And he definitely loves his fashion, you know. So I had to put all of those things together and build the personality of a billionaire chef, and hence the move.
Wow. I'm so into this Delulu phase where everyone's saying you're being delusional, but I've seen people like you, because I remember we used to have so many conversations on WhatsApp, and you were so passionate about not changing how authentic you were and how everything had to tell a story, because you're like a great storyteller. Like I remember all those messages where you'd be like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then I sat back the other day and I looked and I said, you're actually doing every single thing you said you wanted to do.
But that's what faith is, really and truly. If you think about it, faith is really believing in something that is not yet seen, but you also have to really do believe in it. You have to walk in the line. And I always say the thing about names. Names are very powerful. You know why? Because it's the one word that somebody's going to say to you the most. You're going to hear that more than anything else.
Your name.
So if you don't, your name doesn't have a meaning, and you don't attach a meaning to it, then you're just wasting the word.
Because many people these days, these Oyimbos that will just name their children Apple, Oranges.
And now they become Apple and Oranges.
I'm like, when I think about when I eventually have a child, I already have a name.
Of course.
Baby, I already have a name. The name came to me one evening, sat on my balcony, and I got the name of my son. I know my son's name. Yeah. I know when I pray for my kids, I don't pray, Father Lord, my children. I call my son's name. Like I'd be like, come to mommy. Like
that child is going to come. And when a child does come, you'll be surprising how that child will have the characters that you've envisioned, because you have been imagining it. You have been speaking it into existence. You're speaking into your existence over and over and again. And the universe is hearing. God is hearing. Do you understand? God is the universe, you know? And that's why they say, positive thoughts, negative thoughts, it's all the same thing. It's like literally your energy that you're putting out. Look at me now. Billionaire chef, billionaire chef, billionaire chef. Now, it don't happen.
So, you know, COVID was a very interesting, I say this to I was just talking about this like last week, how COVID literally changed the world.
It did.
And prior to COVID, there were signs that there was going to be a change.
Yes.
I remember when I was, still on radio, and we'll have these meetings and everyone was talking about going digital and traditional media dying. And I remember in those meetings, they used to say that in 8 years, traditional media would eventually die. And people would be like, oh no, regardless of this social media thing people are doing, it's just a phase. Like people will still respect newspapers. I know people that if they don't read newspapers, by their breakfast, and I thought, you know what I mean? And COVID happened. And exactly that prophecy.
Even now, my mother reads her newspaper on her tablets.
You know what's so weird? It birthed so many careers.
Oh, yes.
COVID was also the point where a lot of people were with time and nothing but time
to think about what exactly it is they wanted to do, how they were going to apply them. Of course, now, because a lot of people realized then that they were miserable at work, and there were other things that they could do that would bring them joy, and then they realized that
they could earn money. Yes. The influencer game changed. Before COVID, there were influencers that you knew that, okay, this is what they're doing. And you have to almost search for them. After COVID, everybody and their mother and their mother's father and their sister, they're all influencers. In different editors, everyone just became very creative.
Absolutely.
And it's like, these are people that have always had this gift, but they never really tapped into it because they were stuck behind a desk for hours. And even the office culture being back is still not the same.
It's not.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean, because you ask yourself sometimes, why are you working from the office right now when you could literally have saved all that transport money and the traffic and all the frustration and horns and done so much more at home. The one thing, though, is that offices have to create an environment that allows for checks and balances during that whole work from home culture. Because people sometimes don't just really take the mickey. They just take the piss.
So let's talk about the move. What made you, because I know we used to talk about it back then, about you wanting to, make this move.
So, I mean, I studied international business management. I'd always imagined myself working across different borders. It's always been my dream to have businesses across different borders. Now, I found myself in the culinary space, right? And I tagged myself a culinary entertainer. And so what that meant was that I had to use food to entertain people, And then I think in 2016 was when I really started to travel. And I traveled, every time I would travel with food. I would host dinners with my friends that would, you know how we go as a group. Everybody, puts money together, we get a villa, and it's part of the experiences of all the things that we're going to do. One of them is that I'm going to host a dinner, right? And when I do host a dinner, I would create this environment, set the table, I'll play the music, I'll tell the stories, and people really tapped into it. In 2019, I did the exact same thing in Los Angeles where I hosted a dinner for friends and family, and everyone absolutely just loved the experience. So when I went back in 2021, after the pandemic was lifted, I went on holiday. This was real holiday. I was literally just going on holiday.
I'm just gone for 6 months?
It was even 3 months, and then I extended it for an extra 3 months, And during that time, I'd hosted like a few friends over. I'd hosted a few things at my friends' houses. And it was just things to just get people to experience the culture. I was at a house
party in LA, and there were like celebrities, like a couple of celebrities that were there. And when they found out I was from Nigeria, they said to me, we just attended a culinary or gourmet.
They supposed to come to the private dining room
or
in
whatever.
Hollywood.
Yeah. And they said, this Nigerian guy. And they started talking about your jollof rice. And I was like, I know him. That was a bragging moment for me. Even though I was vexing for you that you didn't invite me because I was in LA.
I didn't know you were in LA.
Boy, bye.
You'd be coming into town and not be hitting me up.
Boy, like...
You and Tiwa, I'm watching you people. There's no people are now going there and now be like, Eros, and I was, I'm like...
But at that moment I bragged. I was like, well, that's my boy. And I think, and they were talking about how, the food was so good. And, the culture, which you touched on.
But the truth is, the food is really good. Nigerian food, I mean, you yourself, when you go outside Nigeria, don't you look for Nigerian food?
We miss Nigeria, I don't lie.
You'll be looking for Nigerian food because the food is just that good. There's something really soulful about our food. It's very bold,
I think
very
it carries
full
our
of flavor.
culture as well and how proud we are about it.
It does. And so what happened after that was, after the holiday was coming to an end, I really looked at, my career, and I thought to myself, at the time I was trying to open a restaurant in Abuja, and I looked at it and thought to myself, is that really the next best move? I started getting a lot of inquiries, people saying, hey, we want to bring you here. We want to do events with you. And obviously I was a visitor, so I wasn't taking on anything because I'm not breaking any rules, So I got a guy, an organization, my dream big club, Sheon Phillips, who walked up to me and said, look, Eros, this thing that you're doing is not a small thing. I don't think you realize how many people want to access the culture, want to access the food, want to learn about it. And the way you're doing it, you're not just telling people to come and eat. You're using it as a moment. It's like a history lesson. Do you understand? And so we petitioned for what I found out then to be a visa called the O1 visa. Aliens of Extraordinary Abilities. I first thought to myself, who came up with this shit? I was like, wait, what?
I mean, I'm looking at you like, what?
What?
I didn't know that
was a real thing. It's a real visa, And so we got...
Who are the people who qualify for it, like creatives?
Creatives, people who are, setting trends, who are trailblazing and have been doing it for time, and there's a track record. It's not just, I just turned out, I'm now a chef and I can do, I hope to be able to. No, it's not a hope to. You have to show what you've been able to do. And if you look at my track record from the age of 21 to where I was at the time, I think I was 33 at the time, I'd done so much. At that time, I probably released 12 different brands, everything from cookie jar, even to Puff Puff Boutique, breakfast at Eros. I just keep popping out different things.
You remember that breakfast by Eros?
That breakfast at Eros.
I
did it for 6 months. So 6 months like this. I
was just get a message from Tolu early in the morning. Says, I'm sending this. I'm trying to do that. I'm just sending this. There's Puff Puff. I was your guinea pig for all your enterprise.
Pretty much, And so, so my lawyer looked at it and figured, this. He looked at it and immediately saw it. It was like, this is a good case. Like, you are definitely an O1 candidate, right? And so we put all the documents together and applied for it. And in record time, when I say record time, so the first step was you needed to get a verification from the Culinary Federation in America that you're an alien of extraordinary ability. It usually takes 2 weeks. They put mine in. I remember because we were in Art Basel in December, the first week of December. They put mine in the morning at 8 o'clock. At 1 p.m., my lawyer hit me up saying, your verification just came back. We've never seen anything like that.
Wow.
Right? And so immediately we submitted the petition right after that. And then I got it in January, which again was record timing. And right after that, the first thing I needed to do was get a place. And Los Angeles is not a cheap city.
Tell me about
You know how much rent is in Los Angeles?
Hey.
My rent 1 month is somebody's rent 1 year.
As in.
So I first said to myself, for me to be able to live here, I need to be able to afford it, maintain it. I mean, I have expensive tastes, So, but I I'm always one of those, like, I go big or go home. Again, the billionaire chef.
I think that's one of the things we have in common. Yeah, we either do it big or
there's no point. Yeah. So I started looking for a place. I found a perfect location, a live workspace, which meant that I could actually work and live in the same space. Perfection at its finest. Because even Cookie Jar, if you remember, in 1004, I lived in 1004. I lived upstairs and my bakery was downstairs. Same thing. I live upstairs and my dining table is downstairs. So I created what we initially tagged as a pop-up, a private dining room in a chef's living room. It's literally a chef's table, a true chef's table. And we started hosting dinners. We started March the 24th of 2022, which is literally a month and a few days after I'd gotten the space. Quickly picked up, because before I even found the space, I'd already started wish listing. And all of my wish came true. One by one, whether it's somebody that will gift me or whether I will just get a booking. I remember Super Bowl was coming up. I got a booking for a guy.
Congratulations about that.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I got a booking from a billionaire. He booked me, paid me enough to actually pay for everything on my wish list. That's how I set up my place in Hollywood. And from the day we opened, I have a friend of mine, David Olusoga, who ended up becoming a partner. He knew the landscape of the culinary space. So he invited a bunch of people and it took off. In less than a month, ILE was listed as Los Angeles' best pop-up restaurant. Ooh. Right after that, the accolades just kept coming in. And our bookings, you could barely get a seat, right? And it was small, 16 people, 2 sittings. We do a sitting at 5 o'clock where we do 4 courses, and then we do a sitting at 8 o'clock where we do 9 courses or 7 courses, depending on the menu. And each season, the menu changes and the menu is telling different stories. We started off with the Back to Basics menu, which was literally taking us back to basic Nigerian food. Ewa going was on the menu. Agege bread was on the menu. Basically things that you would find on the street. Suya, And then
for the Nigerians in diaspora who had not had access to this thing.
Yeah, this was definitely blowing their minds.
Because I remember a lot of people used to also do this where they would go with their girlfriends. It was a thing to attend.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Infatuation listed it as the best place to have a birthday party.
Amazing.
At the time, and then the next year just kept going. 1 year after that, I think in December of 2022, our jollof rice won Infatuation's best dish of 2022. I had gone to the chef conference, the LA chef conference, and 3 weeks before that, Wolfgang Puck, I'm sure everyone knows Wolfgang Puck, he had come to the restaurant, right, the private dining room, and he he came in, he took pictures, he jumped in the kitchen with me. You know, it was a very fun time. And when I arrived at the conference, my people had bought like front row seats for me, and but I arrived 5 minutes late. And I typically don't like getting away late, so I was trying to like sneak in for where your seat is first, all the way in front. And then I also came looking like this, so there was almost no way to.
Sees you, there's always like, who's this guy? Yeah.
He was on stage. Wolfgang Puck was on stage. He was hosting a panel. He literally stopped. I was like, my Nigerian friend is here. I tried to sit down. He goes, stand up, say hello to everybody. And then he went on to talk about like the pop-up, his experience, and told everyone to come through. And then obviously the ratings went up again. But then we got invited to open a restaurant. Now, at the time, I didn't want to open a restaurant. And this is because I already have a restaurant I'm running remotely, which is obviously very difficult.
How do you do that? Because I wanted to ask how you keep the restaurants open here.
The hours. First of all, I've been blessed with an amazing mother.
Yeah.
So my mother took on acting CEO, and she's been acting CEO for over 2 years now. And bear in mind, she's not a young lady. She's in her early 70s, right? But also with an amazing team where we're over 30 people who work on the team. And then, like I said, COVID taught us a lot. We all learned how to work remotely. The only thing that couldn't happen was that I couldn't physically taste the food to check for quality control. But I had trusted mouths here. So whenever we will change the menu, and the thing is, I had a team that worked with me for so long. One of my chefs has been with me since my first restaurant, I was 14 years ago. So he knows my language. When I say I want this and this and this, he knows how to balance that. And this we had perfected it to that point before I left. So I was able to like update the menu remotely. I was able to check on everything remotely. I was able to work with the team remotely. And all I just needed to do was tweak my hours. You know, I work certain times in the middle of the night. I work sometimes in the day. You know, I just found a balance that works with. But you know, the time difference is 8-9 hours.
LA is a different life.
It's like
you have to almost forget here. So
sometimes.
You trying to do both is absolutely incredible, my friend.
Listen,
because when you're in LA, you have to forget Africa. It's almost like trying to juggle in the same time zone.
But I couldn't, because I had so much invested here. I have so much ties here, you know. I have contracts that I have to deliver to regularly. Cookie Jar, for example, is tied to a lot of financial institutions that we do birthday cakes for. Eros and Gourmet Catering hosts dinners in some of our billionaires' houses every weekend. So there's no out. Like, you have to continue. They don't care whether Eros has gone to LA. The food still has to carry on.
Taste as good.
Yes. And even when they'll get bored at the point, they're like, listen, tell Eros that we need to update this menu.
I want to ask about the menu, because I've always been curious about, you know, chefs and how, you know, I find chefs very fascinating, which is why I wanted to have to sit down with you, because I feel like it has a lot to do with handwork coupled with, you know, being creative. So the brain work never dies, because one menu is great only for a season. You have to keep on refreshing those menus so that people keep coming back and finding new ways to eat certain things that they're already used to eating. So how do you literally work your menu updating? And what do you know is going to be a hit, and what do you know is not probably going to bang? Well, you had some akara thing as well.
I mean, we're going through a lot. So for me, the first thing for me is identity. Right?
Okay.
I think every artist needs to have an identity, right? I found my identity, and I know my items. I know my key ingredients in my kitchen. Like, there are things that are standards. Even if I'm creating any new menu, those things are always going to sneak in there. For example, my Zobo reduction is always going to find its way in there. My lemon curd is probably going to find its neck in there. You know, there are little things like that, right? So I have my identity. The next thing is really to choose my path. So for me, my path has been and will always continue to be West African cuisine. Right? Nigerian, because that's what I know the most, right? And that's what I'm preaching the most. And for me, there's a lot to go through, you know, from the east to the west, to the north to the south. And I'm a mix of cultures already. My mom is half Edo, half Calabar. My dad is Yoruba. So before I finish even cooking those 3 different cuisines, do you understand? And then it's now really trying, in terms of, for me, I'm lucky. I have a gift. Some people can act, some people can sing. I can cook.
Yeah.
You know, so
when did you discover that you had a thing for cooking?
In uni.
Okay.
That was when necessity was the mother of my invention. I needed to cook Nigerian food, and I was in Wolverhampton University, all the way in the West Midlands. There was nobody, I could not find suya, let alone egusi. I had to call my mother, and my mother and my grandmother literally taught me how to cook Nigerian food over the phone. But I caught on very quickly once I understood that it was really a game of ratios, understanding the ingredients that go into it and the ratios and at the timing in which you put in things. But then also my skill grew when I started baking. because baking taught me consistency, taught me dedication, taught me precision, taught me timing, taught me environment, because you have to be conscious of the environment.
Talking about food. It's like, are we talking about building a bridge? This is just what?
But it literally is. Food is a chemical. Food is literally chemistry.
Yeah.
You don't understand that the difference between somebody's cake and another person's cake can literally be the temperature of their egg.
Wow.
Yeah. Can literally be the temperature of the egg.
You're getting done. Wow. I mean, I don't cook, so all of this is obviously sounding like
lucky for some.
I mean, and I've always worried, would I date someone who can cook? I think you always show off in the kitchen. Like, just
but you don't cook now, so you don't need to.
Yeah, but I still always feel like, what's wrong with this person? And then the day I
there are ways that things you will show off in too now.
Exactly. The day I now try to do something like your egg is not right. This is not the temperature of the egg.
So I've personally had to teach myself not to be that guy. Okay. I never want to be that person who is a party pooper, who is spoiling. If you go to dinner with me, I'll be the last person to complain about anything.
Do you go to other restaurants?
Oh, absolutely. I don't cook for myself.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't cook for myself.
That when you finish cooking, you don't even have the appetite to eat the food?
Well, sometimes. Okay. If I'm hungry, I'll eat.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm cooking for us, I will definitely eat, right? If I'm cooking for a group and it's a party, I've gone through a whole day of cooking, I'm probably not going to have the appetite to eat that. I'll probably want something else. And that's because, the thing about it is our nose smells a lot. Like, we have more taste buds in our nose than we have on our tongue. Our tongue can only taste spicy, salty, sweet, but our nose can taste so much more. And
when I realized that, sorry to cut you short, was when COVID happened to me.
When you didn't have your nose,
the ability to smell.
Then you could not
actually take that for granted.
Yeah, we don't.
They gave me plantain and it tasted like sawdust. And I realized that the sense of, I couldn't even smell it. Yeah. So I realized what makes me excited to eat is actually me smelling it first before I even taste it. So when you walk into a house, you smell the kitchen and this ogbono.
And then your eyes
nice.
Is next to before you taste it. Your eyes is sending signals to your brain and already telling your brain what to expect in terms of taste and texture.
Wow.
Without you even knowing, right? So that's why sometimes some people put things in their mouth and they're pleasantly surprised because they didn't expect it to be taste that like that.
Oh yeah.
Because it didn't look like that. Yeah. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And so when you smell, like I've been in the kitchen smelling, it's a sense messages to my brain that I'm eating. And especially if I'm constantly drinking water, I'm not hungry. Half the time, you're just filling up your belly, right? And so that's where hunger comes from. Now I'm smelling and I'm drinking water, I feel full. Now when I get out of that space though, give me 1 hour. Hey, that's how I used to put on weight before, was because I was always eating at 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. Now I have my strategy. Before I enter inside the kitchen, Mahjong, I will eat before I enter inside that kitchen so that I don't need to look for it at 11 o'clock. And then I have my snack afterwards that I know, okay, if I get hungry around 7 o'clock, before next service, I have my snack. That's how I was able to lose weight.
So let's talk about building this brand, because it's one thing for you to do this just because, I have a hobby for it, right? As a need of necessity, as you said, while you were in university. At what point did you know that this was something that you were going to do? And I mean, I know some of the challenges that you've had as well, even in Nigeria, trying to just set this up. And you were trying to do it at a time when people didn't understand what you were trying to do. So how did you get past all the, because Nigerians are very interesting people. Now, if they don't understand something, their very first instinct is to hate on it or put it down just because they don't understand it. It's like they're afraid to open themselves up to the possibility that, there is more to life than all that you know. And I'm Nigerian, so this is not me trying to bring our people down for those who are watching outside of Nigeria. This is me just saying what it is. You know what I mean? I grew up also existing in a space where when my brand started, because people were like, why is she just so out there? Why she, instead of embracing the fact that, wait, this person
is a huge part of that, though. Exposure is a huge part of that. Now you see that Nigerians are changing because of exposure, access to the internet, access to, the global web. They're able to see that there are different, people are different. Do you understand? That there are different types.
Accepting the...
Now,
I think it's what, in my case,
so.
I think what it is you do you and the world eventually adjusts.
That's accepting.
I think at some point it's like, but we can say what we can say about this girl, she's going nowhere. then they're now curious as to what exactly is this, because it's a success. But I'm sure you had moments where...
absolutely. I think for me, education played a huge part in it. I studied international business management at the University of Wolverhampton, which is one of the best business schools in the Midlands. And I learned a lot during that process organically, because I come from an entrepreneurial family. You know, my mother has been an entrepreneur her life. My father has also been as well. You know, and I've seen them become very, very successful. And I've also seen them fail, right? So I understand both sides of the spectrum. You know, I've had days, we've had time in our lives when we're flying first class, and we've had time in our life when Momsi will be like, we might have to take a bus. Do you understand? Where you have gone up and come back down, and then you have to, you know, so I've learned that, right? And so I know that life always comes with its ups and downs, and you have to learn to save for the rainy day. It's like what Noah's Ark was trying to teach us about, like, you know, saving up for the flood.
That's what it was.
Yeah, you know, and so for me, I go in, and I think one of the things that also helped for me was reading this book called The Secret. When I was in uni, in my second year, my cousin introduced me to a book called The Secret. If you haven't read it, you should absolutely go and read the book. And it was talking about the law of attraction, right? And it also talks about intentionality. And one of the things that I took from that book was taking the first step and not worrying about the end. Just take the first step. And as you take more steps, you'll gradually start to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And as you take more steps, that light will get brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And then it will just be a whole light, you know? And so I took that into little practices, right? For example, I became the ACS president of my university, and I didn't know how, but I took the first step. And as I took more steps in that direction, it got clearer and got clearer and got clearer. The same thing applied with my business in uni called Chicken Guy. I didn't know how it was going to work, but I took the first step. I put the chicken in the bag. Seasoned it, I put it in the bag, and I sold it to the first person. And I took the money from that one and bought 2 more, and I sold it to 2 more people. And then I kept growing from that. And I learned those little steps along the way. Now, when I moved back to Nigeria, and my mother, I helped my mother open the restaurant, right? But then she stepped back. She didn't really want to do it. She just wanted to own the restaurant. So she did the investment part of it. And I put in my money where my mouth is, because my mother would always say, put your money where your mouth is, you know. And then I also started on running.
Bear the risk.
Yes, exactly. So you know that something is at risk for you, you know. And then also, what they call it, working in the path, you know. At the time, you know, a lot of people didn't understand this, like 21-year-old guy. But then I had to go around telling people I was 28 so that they can take me seriously. Now, that restaurant failed. In 2.5 years, we had to pack it up and lost everything that we had put in, you know. At that time, you would feel like, you know, it's all over. It's all over. You know?
I remember one of those times where you had this whole meltdown on Twitter. I remember it was at that point when I think the restaurant had failed and you were just sick and tired of it.
Sick and tired of it all, you know, and people were owing me, and that was why it failed, because I had a lot of people, friends would come, they'll buy drinks, they would pay up, all of that, you know. But what I did again was I came back stronger with Cookie Jar, you know. And again, took one step. I started baking 12 cookies in an oven at a time. Valentine's Day came. I took more orders than I could handle. I took 2 days to deliver some people's cookies. Sorry to those people who got their cookies. Who got their cookies Valentine's, February 16th.
Imagine ordering for Valentine's and it's 2 days later it arrives.
Hey God. Thankfully, some of them were my friends, so they understood. Like I apologize. You know, I was always proactive with like telling you, this was happening. And Nigerian factor will happen. The lights will have, that's the day that lights are having issues, all of that. You know, but I was able to take that and invest in the business and, you know, get a bigger oven and then grow it and grow it and grow it. But necessity always ends up being the mother of invention. When I moved out of 1004, no one made me move out of 1004 and ended up getting two locations, one on Admiralty Way and one off Admiralty Way as my production house. I got a red letter, a letter that says, cease and desist. This place is not a place of business. You're not allowed to do this here anymore. It was okay at the beginning, but now it has become like people are always coming here.
And
security, my neighbors were like security race, this, that. So I had 2 weeks
to pack out.
Listen, in 2 weeks, Moya, Kaka, I've spoken to everybody. Kaka, I found money. Kaka, we have rented, done this, done that. Done.
And you were done. I love your always ready to do attitude. I feel like in a world where a lot of young people have crazy ideas and crazy, I want to do this, I want to do that.
I know what I always say, the crazier an idea, the better.
I think so.
What you think you should not do, that is what you absolutely should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because guess what? The people who break the bank are those who are disruptors.
They have the audacity.
You have to have the audacity. At the time when I did what I did like when I started in LA, even when I started with Cookie Jar, how many bakeries were open in Cookie Jar? You had Cakes and Cream. You had Cakes by Tosan. You only had you didn't have young people open.
You had
how many young people have bakeries?
Yeah.
But somebody always has to play that risk game.
Yeah.
The same thing with catering. When I went into catering, I was doing catering the way I was doing it. Everyone was saying, what are you doing? Garnish. Now, see, open the floodgates for everyone. People who have studied abroad have come back and seen that Tolu Eros studied abroad too now. He's living well. That means it's possible for me to live well under food. And yes, food business is absolutely good.
There's so much money in food business. People
you just have to stay consistent. That's the thing about food business. It does not start overnight. You have to put in the work. You have to learn the ropes, and you have to be there to monitor and protect it, because otherwise, it takes as much as one case of food poisoning to lose your integrity.
To be honest, I was going to ask you about that. Like, how do you, quality control and the risk factor of people coming to your restaurant? Because I've eaten in certain places and I wouldn't go back there because I've had crazy experiences. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, nah. Especially places in Nigeria where they would be quick to say, medium rare, well done. I said, please, when I'm home, it's well done. No, I beg, I can't afford to get food poisoning. Do you know what I mean? Abroad, you can be like, medium rare with your steak. I know that at least what you're eating, you can bank on. So how have you been able to sort of check and balance all of that?
I think it all starts with integrity.
Yeah.
It starts with integrity, and I think that's the success of any business, really and truly, is to have integrity. To have integrity, not just for your customers, but also for your employees. Because you're only as good as them. If they're unhappy, it's going to show. Do you train? Do you get people from... Everyone that we bring in mostly doesn't know anything about what we're doing. So we have to train. As a matter of fact, I prefer those. I prefer those that don't already have bad habits that they've been taught. I like the fresh off the boat, so it's like, you can see the enthusiasm and you see them learn quickly because, those people, there's so much passion and drive, and especially in the young, Nigerians, they're all trying to do something new, so integrity. And then integrity is what now leads into choosing quality over quantity. There were times in my business where, I saw my procurement people looking to choose quantity over quality. And I always told them, this thing is going to backfire. Do you understand? I'd rather we know that this is the quality that we are sticking to. And this is the price that we are paying for it. People have to pay for it. And the people that can afford it, pay for it. The ones that cannot afford it, they have stronger stomach. Because I cannot mix them. Your stomach and the stomach of somebody that's gone, they are two different stomachs. Yes. Do you understand? So if I mix the two of you and I give you the quality of the streets, I'm not going to be able to handle it. Yeah. Yes. And, so we have to choose our battle. Yeah. I like how you put it as some people have strong stomach. Yeah. Because they will say, don't you know they kill African man? It's different types of African man.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, Chef Eros on Toke Moments. Guys, I told you this season has been very diverse with our guests. And I love that this was such a wholesome conversation. I wasn't worried because I knew that every time we meet, this is exactly what we do anyway. So when next time in LA, I would definitely... But you're coming back for
Christmas again. But I'll be back again in LA in January. But next year is going to be a lot of traveling for me. The truth is, the next year is really a lot of traveling. Taking the cuisine around the world, so we're working.
How did I forget to mention that you're Jennifer Hudson's favorite jollof rice?
that happened on the opening of ILE Bistro. As a matter of fact, it was a very serendipitous moment.
And then you sent jollof rice to her on our show.
Yes,
and she talked about it.
She came as well. She's come a number of times as well. And we celebrate with her. You know, we love Jennifer Hudson. She's amazing. And also shout out to Folake, because Folake is who actually made, you know, Folake. Folake, Bob Hats Abishola. Have you seen the show? Bob Hats Abishola.
Yeah.
So Folake is actually the one who made
wedding
she made the connection. You know, big thank you to everyone who has supported us throughout this whole journey. It's definitely been, you know, quite the journey, and there's so much more to look forward to. I know that the people in like Paris are saying, when are you coming? People in London, when are you coming? We're definitely coming. We just need to, you know, set a lot of things aligned, you know, especially when it comes to being in Nigeria. And these are great passports just to follow around.
I know, but we're working on it. All right, guys, thank you so much for being a part of this. Make sure you're tuning to the next episode of Toke Moments. Until then, my name has always and will always remain the same. It's Toke Makiwa. Chat with you later.